Welcome to the Deep Dive Podcast. Becoming the dad God has called you to be takes a deeper dive. Dads too often stay at surface level. So let's dive deep into today's podcast.
Welcome back to the Dad Deep Dive Podcast. Can you believe we're on episode 8 of this incredible podcast? It has been an incredible adventure. If you haven't taken the time to go back and look at the first 7 episodes, I would highly suggest that you do that. Up Ministries is committed to engaging every dad to be the dad that God has called them to be. And these podcasts are a great tool to helping you deepen your understanding and your relationship with your kids, with your wife, and what it means to be a dad. Today, we have Pastor Rhett Ansley sitting down with Jeff to talk about how do you be a dad when the DNA is different. Pastor Rhett has had the privilege of being a stepdad to some amazing kids, and he's going to share his experiences with you of what it looks like when they look at you and say, "You're not my dad."
All right, Reverend Rhett Ansley, you are episode 8.
Wow.
For Dad U Online. And you know what excites me? Not only that you're here, that we get to do this, is that it excites me to think about the audience that's going to hear the words that we're going to share, and hopefully they hear at least one thing that resonates with them, that encourages them to make a change, to influence, maybe the next generation. So, so thank you. I want to thank you for taking time, because I know you're busy. You're a busy man.
Well, thank you. This is a great invitation and a great opportunity.
Well, you've always been part of Dad U. We've hosted the first Dad University Live in March of 2018, and then we came back and we did a second one, and you've been instrumental in allowing us to be a gracious host at Wildwood, and me being on staff there, allowing me to kind of use Wildwood's men as kind of the pilot for a lot of things that we do with Suit Up. And so the partnership that we've had over these years, I'm so grateful. And technically as my boss, well, you are my boss. I don't tell you that enough. I don't thank you enough for doing that and being all in with this idea of Dad University. And so this Dad U Online is exciting, because now hopefully in the fall we get to launch these podcasts, these courses for men at their leisure to click and maybe glean from some things that we have to say. So your title today, which we're going to get to, I just want to put it up front, is "You Are Not My Dad," and we're going to get into why you title your topic that. But before we do that, I want you to talk a little bit about who you are, because obviously I know you, but our audience doesn't know you. Who you are, how you got here. Talk about your family and what.
Sure, I love to talk about myself. So this is awesome. So I am the lead pastor at Wildwood United Methodist in Magnolia, right here on 1488 next door to Bear Branch Elementary School. I am completing the 6th year, getting ready to begin the 7th year. At least that's how I count it. My wife counts it a different way, and we have long conversations about that. That's a whole nother conversation.
That's another episode?
It could be another episode, but it's really about math. And I think it's more contemporary math that neither of us understand. So speaking of my wife Miranda, we've been married 10 years this July. And both of us are preparing to turn 40, so it's in June. And so it's a big year for us.
That is a big year.
And we have 3 children: John Andrew, who is 16, Ella, who turns 12 in June. Her birthday is also in June. And Ethan, who is 8. And they keep us busy. With all of their many activities, basketball, dance, karate, soccer. Our activity is kind of like this cross-country style driving that is only limited to the Magnolia area. We put a lot of miles on vehicles, and when we're not doing that, we love traveling, spending time with our extended family and friends like yourself, who become like family. And so I've served churches in the Tyler area, specifically at Noonday out on Lake Palestine was my first appointment. That happens to be when we met long before we were here and together in Magnolia. We won't mention how many years ago that was.
I think you were in diapers, and I was a teenager.
Yeah, sure. And then Longview, and then now here at Wildwood, and somewhere in the middle of all of that, I was a college chaplain and campus dean of students for 4 years, and have just loved every moment in ministry.
You've done a lot of things, Reverend Rhett, in a short period of time. I mean,
yeah, you have to keep it interesting.
Yeah. So you're turning 40 this month?
Next week.
Okay. That really makes me feel old because this month been married 40 years.
Wow.
As long as you've been alive.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Yeah. So
you're old enough to be my dad.
I could be.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
I could have had you at 22.
But you're not my dad.
It's that.
See what I did?
That is so good.
Yeah, that's free.
So what a great segue. For our listeners, this was a title of your presentation or a session that we had at Dad U Live.
Yes.
And okay, so why would you come up in your? I know you explained your family dynamics to a certain degree, but you really haven't explained, and that's what we're about ready to get into.
Yeah.
So why the title, You're Not My Dad?
Well, so I think, first of all, I have to offer a disclaimer.
Okay.
I think that is the ethical thing to do. And that is to say that I acknowledge in sharing today that not everyone's story is the same. And that not everyone's experience is the same. And that this topic is really not a one-size-fits-all sort of thing. But I do think there are some key things that we can talk about today, that we can learn in community with one another. And my hope is that this begins a conversation that continues.
Yeah.
That continues. So, in preparation for today, I didn't want to come without some research, right? I didn't want to come with just my own experience. The Department of Health and Human Services says that 40% of couples who are marrying today are forming blended families, meaning that 1 out of 3 in the U.S. are part of some kind of blended family. There's a step-parent involved in some way, and so there are others who have had the experience of having a child look at them and say, "You're not my dad," and oftentimes in anger, oftentimes in kind of a lashing out and an attempt to hurt you. And so, my hope is we can unpack that a little and help us learn how do we deal with that? What happens if you're part of a blended family? If you're a dad in a blended family and your child, who's not your child but has become your child, right, says this to you, so that you can respond to that in a way that is constructive rather than destructive.
Yeah. Well, so as you alluded to, not all situations are the same.
Yeah.
What we talk about is not one size fits all, but there are aspects of all of our conversations that are relatable and can be applied. So talk about, let's just start unpacking your own experience.
Yeah, so I get to tell you about my love story.
Yes, absolutely.
So this is fun. So let's see, we're celebrating our 10th anniversary this month, which means that I met my wife 20 years ago this summer.
Wow.
And we were both undergraduate music majors at the University of Texas at Tyler. And She is a vocalist. I'm a pianist. We were both transferring in, and we sat down in the same room for a piano proficiency exam. That was the very first time we met. Interestingly enough, not really pertinent to the topic, but it's a podcast and folks love to listen.
Absolutely.
Right? So, as a pianist, I failed the exam. As a vocalist, she passed the exam. She never lets me forget that.
I was going to say, does she remind you of that?
Oh, yeah.
A few times.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Regularly. So we went to school together, and we were great friends. We taught together in a studio. We never thought about dating, although all of our friends thought about us dating. But they didn't share that with us. They were just kind of sat back and watched from a distance. We graduated from our undergraduate. Miranda went to SMU. I went to TCU, for both of us for graduate work. And then after we finished the graduate work, I was working at the college, and Miranda applied for a voice position at the college and was hired on. And I didn't even know that was really happening. And we sat in faculty development together at the beginning of the semester, and I was one of the administrators at the school. And as you know, no one sits with administrators. You sit alone in development. And so I said to her in a coffee break, I said, hey, I'm sitting up here by myself. You're sitting back there by yourself. We know one another. We could sit by one another. And we were still good friends. And she just kind of kept it quiet that she was applying for the position, and they kept it quiet within the department. And it was one of those fun things, and just came together. That was early in the week, and by midweek I said, hey, we used to have the chance to get together every Thursday night, cook dinner, watch TV. I said, why don't you come over? Well, Miranda had a 5-year-old at that point, and basically a newborn. Ella was 3 months old, and just prior to coming to the college, there had been the decision that the relationship she was in was not going to work as much as she had tried. And we tried so hard. I tried really hard to get her to commit to dating me. And she was really hesitant. It was like, can I be a preacher's wife? I have 2 children. Our children are mixed race. We were serving in East Texas. Is this going to work? And, to make a long story longer, I ended up finally saying to her, look, either we're going to date and make this work or we're not. We started dating in September. By Thanksgiving, the 2 of us were having offline conversations about what the rest of our life would look like. We were engaged by March. We married in July, and moved in the middle of that to a new appointment, new church. And in the end, I ended up receiving 2 of the greatest wedding gifts, Johnny Andrew and Ella. Now, what's fun about that is that I'd known both of them. I was, I think, the 3rd person to hold Johnny Andrew after he was born, and had spent time with him already his entire life. So our situation was a bit unique, and I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes, a little more. But that is our story, and we had bumps along the way. And I still remember that afternoon where we had made the switch. He had gone to spend time with his dad and came back. And those transitions back to the house, blended families experience this all the time. You go spend time with the other parent, you come back home, there's like this period of adjustment. And we soon learned that, okay, it's just one meltdown, and we're going to have it.
Yeah.
And it only happened that one time, where in the middle of the meltdown, I heard those words, "You're not my dad." And that was a defining moment. I had to figure out how to respond to that.
Wow. So you talk about some lessons learned, some key lessons in that. So what are those? What is it that you learned through this process that you want to share?
Yeah. So as a preacher, I kind of in preparing for today, I thought, okay,
3 points,
right? and I don't have a poem to put at the end that'll make you cry, but I have 3 points, right? So the first one is to remember that it's always about the child. It's about the child. It's not about you, and that it is our role as fathers. I would say this applies even to mothers, honestly. But it is our role to be the adult, right? So they have this moment, this crisis where they're trying to label things, and in their frustration, in their confusion, in somewhat their own wanting to kind of hurt you a little bit, because they're experiencing some hurt in their own lives. We blurt out this line, or they blurt out this line, "You're not my dad," right?
Yeah.
And you're the adult. And so you can fight it and yell back and get into or kind of try to lay down the groundwork and say, "This is what, I may not be your dad, but," kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
Or you can set your pride aside and recognize that you, in my experience, right, I joined their family. We created a new one, but I was joining their family. And I was not owed anything. I think for so many people, this piece is that it's about respect.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're disrespecting me if you say this. No, they're expressing a conflict, right? And we can respond to that by creating greater conflict, or we can understand empathetically where they are and realize we're not owed anything. We're not owed anything.
Yeah.
So I think that's a key piece. The first one is that it's always about the child. Always about the child.
I can see where you can easily fall into that. You can take the bait, and instead of being the adult like you're talking about, go to their level,
right,
and take it personal and be hurt by it and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot that you could read into that statement. Like you said, what's behind that statement? I mean, the fact that you are new to the family, even though they knew you, and they have a dad, and this is confusing. I mean, they don't have the capacity to, time's up. No.
We're done.
They don't have the capacity to internalize that yet,
That's right.
And so that's just as an outcry, but we do. But we don't.
Exactly.
We don't always.
And think what the fish gets when they take the bait, right? You get a hook in a mouth, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
So you can take the bait if you want, but it's not going to serve you well, right?
Yeah.
So I think the second thing that I think is a key lesson that I learned was that relationships are built over time. And even though I had this standing relationship, this pre-existing relationship with John Andrew. Ella was a baby, but I had this pre-existing relationship with him. It was still taking time to build a new relationship with, things were being redefined. And so, they can like you, they can love you, but they may not trust you because you're new.
Well, yeah.
You're in a new role.
Yeah. And it may not be that they don't necessarily trust you. They don't really trust the situation.
That's right.
Because they haven't been, maybe they haven't seen. It's like, show me. You have to show me. Don't tell me.
Yes.
And that's where you're talking about the time.
That's right. That's right. And Jeff, that's so good. What I see happening again and again, because I get to visit with others who are going through this, right? And is especially among men. So, you're not my dad. Well, you're right. I'm not your dad. And they throw up their hands and they turn around and walk off. Well, what does that model, right? You throw up your hands and you walk away, they're going to throw up their hands and walk away as well. Mm-hmm. And it will damage that relationship, One of the things for our relationship, meaning me and the children, my relationship with the children, is, and it's often confusing to a lot of people, but it's about the title, right? So we get hung up in our own pride on what will the children call this stepfather, and we want to make it about us, right? We may camouflage it and say it's really about them and it's about respect and blah 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 blah. But in the end, unpack it, and it's often about us, right? Mm-hmm. So because I knew John Andrew from the moment he was born, I was Uncle Rhett. Now, Miranda and I are not cousins. And so it's confusing, right? And it was even confusing. Well, it wasn't confusing, but like my own mother was like, well, are the kids going to change what they call you? No. This is what they've always called me. It's a term of endearment. It's a term of love. It works for us. And I think about a mentor that I had when I worked in higher ed, and he was preparing to be a grandfather for the first time. And I walked in and I said, Frank, what are the grandkids going to call you? And he said, I don't care what they call me, as long as they call me. Mm-hmm. Probably the wisest words that were ever spoken into my parenting life, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know then that those words were preparing me for what I would go through. And I just hear that echo again. I don't care what they call me as long as they call me. Mm-hmm. And so our even, we've got these two older kids that I call the greatest wedding gifts. Miranda and I have one child together, Ethan. Every now and then, if Ethan wants to get my attention, he yells, Uncle Rhett. And, you're like, what are you doing? But again, like, just we're trying to build relationship. We're trying to get attention. We're trying to build trust in everything that we do.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're a better man than I am. I think about how we yearn for our kids to call us, to hear the words dad. Like, I couldn't wait till Mia, my 2-year-old, she couldn't say grandpa. She couldn't pronounce it. So she would call me Papa. Well, that's the other grandparent's name is Papa. So somebody said, well, you should have came up with a name. It would be easier to say. I said, well, but I'm in it for the long haul. That's right. Because they're eventually they're going to be able to call me Grandpa the rest of my life, or the rest of their life. Once So now she says it, and now that she can say it, she just says it out loud, even when she's not talking to Grandpa. Grandpa. That's right. So, but I think it's a great message. It's not to focus on the title. I think it's what you do in that relationship that, and like you said, whatever works as long as they call you, and eventually that'll take care of itself. It will all take care of itself over time.
Yeah. Well, hey, when your name's Rhett, you've been called different things your entire life. So, I mean, just call me whatever you want to call me.
Just call me.
That's right. That's right.
So you had a third key.
Yeah.
Never, ever, under any circumstance, participate in bad-mouthing the child's father.
That's right. That's right. And that's hard. That's hard. Because that's an easy conversation to jump into. It's a and it's a delicate spot for you, because as we could do an entire separate podcast on any parent in a blended family bad mouthing anyone else, right? We can all find faults in each other, but when you have moved into this other relationship, you're developing those relationships, especially you as the stepfather, and I know some people don't like that term, but it's a legal term. You cannot participate in that. And so I often tell folks, affirm as much as you're ethically able to affirm. That doesn't mean you sell your soul and try to paint fairy tale images of the children's father. But affirm that as much as you can, right? And then model for them a healthy relationship with the other parent, the child's father, as much as you're able to do. And then the last part of that is you just choose to always take the high road. And so if their father and their mother are in the middle of having a heated conversation, you have the gift of being the third party. And you can kind of remove them from that. You can redirect. You can just say, hey, you know what? Sometimes adults don't always get along, and we can learn from this, but don't jump in. Don't jump in, because again, you're an outsider. Even though you're inside and you're building that relationship, they see that from you. And at the end of the day, their mother's going to be their mother. And you're the one who, when they come back and reflect on that, you're the one who has spoken ill words of their father. So, and I'm always also careful. People say to me, back to the name, Rhett, why don't you insist on, dad or, this other thing? And I say, hey, in our situation, they have someone they call dad. And I'm not taking that from them. I don't want to confuse that. I want to honor that relationship. I want to affirm that relationship as much as I can. And recognizing that, I hope he does the same for me. And we're in a situation where that does happen. But, we could sit back and find faults with one another all day long.
Right.
I'm not perfect. He's not perfect. Those kids are what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said, just to reemphasize or reiterate the three lessons, it's always about the child. Okay? Relationships take time. And that one reminds me of, even as a teacher, how many times I always said I wanted to be old fast. And, I wanted to be, I didn't want to be the new. So how do you do that? You just spend time with people. So it's about the child, it's about time, and it's about not bad mouthing the parent, the dad. I think those are very real, foundational everybody would agree on those, but it's just hard to do sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, what has been the biggest surprise to you throughout this journey? Because you've had blended in a family in more than one way. You're blended because of two children that are not, biologically yours, but then also biracial marriage, blended family. So, and I love, watching your family. I think that one of the reasons from a observer that you've been successful at our church is because you have been real about you don't claim to be the perfect pastor family, I mean, you put it all out there, and and people can relate to those things.
We can't even get our clothes ironed. I mean, we're just trying to get out the door.
I think about your schedule, and I think about. I wore this one just for you. I thought about you this morning because this one kind of
collar won't stay down.
It won't stay down. I go, Rhett is now going to give me heck about this because I gave him such a hard time the other night. But anyway, I think that's relatable, that we have to be real about our family situation.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think as leaders and in the public, we have to act like we have it all together. And I think more and more now than ever, men and people need to see that they're not the only ones in the struggle, and this is not, there's no recipe from, there's no one way, one size fits all.
Right.
So what's been your biggest surprise?
Man, so it's a surprise and a blessing. And I don't know why this surprises me, because I know my parents. I know their hearts. But I would say they have 100% continued to parent me through this. Parents' work is never done. And with our kids' father, they are gracious, they are loving. There's not a single time that we are together, when he is also present, that my own mother doesn't say, "Thank you for my grandchildren." They do everything they can to show that he is valued, that and that they understand that they've received a gift. They too have received a gift. And I don't know if you know this, I was bachelor 10 years after graduate school, living alone. And my mother had just decided, I'm never having grandchildren. It's just not going to happen, right? And so to go from zero to
three
to two immediately,
right,
and then ultimately three, right?
Yeah.
Was just, it was huge.
Yeah.
It was huge. And both my dad and my mom value being grandparents so much. And to watch their ability to graciously grandparent in the midst of this blended family, it's a surprise, but not really. It's not a surprise like, I can't believe they're doing this.
Yeah.
But it does. There are those moments where it surprises me. It grabs me, watching how beautiful it is as it's happening, and to go, I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah, it's sure. I would imagine it kind of paves the way for you to be able to see them model that for you. Yeah. And it's kind of like my dad not only taught me how to be a dad, he taught me how to be a granddad. You know, so 2 generations. So you now see your parents welcome these 2 that aren't biologically their sons, but every bit grandchildren as if they were, and treat those 2 just like Ethan.
Absolutely.
Like they're grandchildren, period.
You know, I mean, just last night, my parents, I had a meeting. My wife was teaching private lessons at the home. Ethan, our youngest, had a make-up soccer game. And, you know, I called my parents at like 10 o'clock yesterday, and I said, look, somehow Ethan has to get to a soccer game. And we were planning on bringing Ella over to you because there's a Disney movie that premieres this weekend that Ella wants to see, and so what if y'all came over and took Ethan to a soccer game and then took Ella home with you? So, you know, she's there with them, having one-on-one time or one-on-two time with them, and doing her own fun thing this weekend, and then the boys are back at the house. And
what
so, you know,
a blessing for your parents, but what a blessing for those kids too, you know, that they get to experience extended family like that. It's so valuable.
Yeah.
And
even though there's not biological, you know, there's not a biological connection there, it is so funny to watch the ways that, you know, nurture kicks in and they take on the characteristics of my family as well. You know, Ella I'm mouthy and I can be really sarcastic, and Ella, she's got it down. She's got it down. And I get it from my mother. So watching the 2 of them together, it's just, sometimes it's almost too much.
Yeah.
Just so much fun. So, yeah.
So we always hear about how difficult a blended family can be. Can you share about a time when your blended family, your beautiful blended family, was at its very best? Or when is your family at its very best? Because I'm sure it's more than once, but
sure.
I mean, you could probably think of this one time where you go, "Oh my gosh, I wish it was like this all the time." But But what are the things that you're doing when everything is, you know, flourishing? You know,
So I'll share a very recent example. Ella had dance recital a couple of weekends ago, and her dad came down for the dance recital. And we finished that dance recital, and I thought, okay, he's going to take John Andrew and Ella, go off, they'll have lunch, we'll see them at the end of the day. And what ended up happening was we all ended up going to lunch together. And then we ended up back at the house. And then we ended up also having dinner together, which provided a full day of connection. That evening, we sat down, and our 16-year-old is a 16-year-old. And so if you identify the challenges, if you have a 16-year-old and you begin to identify the challenges in your own family with a 16-year-old, well, they're at our house too. And so we sat down, we started having some conversation, and we had an opportunity, the 3 of us, to co-parent. And it was, we connected with him in a way we had not connected before. And I would say we're at our very best when we are practicing some of the very things that I've talked about. And I think that, man, we finished that experience that night of having dinner together, and then their dad left and got on the road to head back home. And I looked at my wife and I said, tonight was great. This was a special, special moment. We felt that. But what was even more special about that moment was that our children felt that. Even our youngest, who just as I don't have a biological relationship to our two oldest, Ethan doesn't have a biological relationship to their dad.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't really have a name for him. But he recognizes that we're all a family.
Mm-hmm.
And when we keep in mind that we're all a family and that we're not creating two different worlds for our kids to live in and to have to, jump back and forth and do these relational acrobatics that children shouldn't have to do.
Yeah.
Man, that's a powerful moment. That's special.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody, I'm thinking of I'm trying to put myself in every person's shoes in that dynamic. And there's nobody there in that situation that you're talking about that doesn't benefit and doesn't walk away better. Yeah. Dad goes home feeling like he's contributed, like he's a valuable asset to this, even though he's not there every day. You too strengthen your relationship. You and your wife, and the whole family dynamic gets to participate and view that and see that model. That is, is that going to be the model for all blended families? No, unfortunately not. But that doesn't mean that's the only way it works. It's not, I think it's it takes the swan, like you were talking about, Swan, a lot of pride and, having your wife's ex in the house, and for knowing that you've put in your feelings aside for her kids, your kids together, trying to make this, putting the child first. I think you go back to I might have to put that on the wall, to standing operating procedures, okay, that's right, putting the child first. oh yeah. And how selfish we are a lot of times in relationships like that. Between two families, two dynamics. So much to think about, so much here to chew on. If I was a listener and hearing you, it would be transformational. Because in a lot of ways, people just say, like you said, it's just a lot easier to throw your hands up and walk away, or to put yourself on a different level that's going to be blinded to see a way to remedy this thing or make this thing work for your family.
Yeah, Jeff, and I'm so thankful for you. You challenged me to begin thinking about this. And in thinking about my own framework, I really began listening to the stories of others. And so I don't share just, my own experience, but, reconciling experiences of others in with all of this. And had you not challenged me to begin thinking about this, I probably would have just, continued doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But not have developed the language to share.
Wow.
So it's challenged me to do a little self-assessment along the way, and continually go back and look and see, how are you doing with this?
Well, we talk about Dad University being the only university you never graduate from. It's continuous ed, so it is a self-reflection. It is, it's like my dad, who was 82 years old at Dad University Live, the very first one. Why would he come at 82 years old? Because we're always learning. We always have something else to learn, and to become a better dad. We don't have, at Dad University, we don't have all the answers. That's why we bring other people in, and even the people we bring in, the first thing they say is, I haven't figured it all out, and one size doesn't fit all, and there's no owner's manual, and there's no, absolute in this thing. It's just the striving, the intentionality. It's, and so just the 3 points that you brought up is so key. They're so forest for the trees. I mean, they're so obvious, but yet we don't, so again, I thank you for that. And I am excited with this Dad U online that the hope is that men in this particular life stage or scenario will click on, be able to see our show notes, have an opportunity to internalize and make that change, make a change that's going to affect the next generation. So I want to thank you for being the man of God that you are. I want to thank you for being the husband that you are. I want to thank you for being the dad that you are, the daily, active, devoted dad, in so many ways, in a very unique way, and sharing your story with us that I know that are men and women and families that are going to benefit from the wisdom today. Is there any one final word that you might say about this? I mean, is there any? I mean, to reiterate maybe a point you've already made? Or?
Sure. Hey, you know what? I offered 3 key lessons. There's a 4th.
Okay.
And that is to remember, to affirm that in our family, none of this would happen without our faith in God, the love and compassion that is modeled to us in the life and ministry of Jesus Christ, and without the gift of the church. As United Methodists, thinking about our understanding of baptism, that it is the church's commitment to help you raise your children. And I know that in each of the churches I've served, and especially here at Wildwood, where we've been, 6 years, that there is not a single person that isn't in this with us. And that's modeled through their love for my children and for us. It's modeled through their willingness to look at my kids and go, hey, if you keep running in this hallway, you're going to fall and bust your head open. So why don't we stop running in the hallway, right? It's modeled in their relationship with the kids as they prepare for confirmation and they're in small groups. And that is a powerful thing. And so, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, how in the world can I ever find the strength and the courage to set aside my own pride, my own wants, my own needs for someone else? Well, I would say find a church, call up Jesus, because in that relationship, we are able to learn. It's not all about us.
Yeah, we cannot do this alone. And men often, we think we're an island. We operate as islands, or in a silo. And some people say, why church? The perfect example. Because it's not just church, it's that extended family that's going to wrap their arms around you. I remember telling someone recently, the idea, even the concept of Jesus was kind of a far away, not difficult to grasp. And I said, okay, let's put that just for a moment. Just come to a church and let us love on you. and you'll see. We won't have to explain Jesus to you. You'll see. You'll understand because of our love and our welcomeness to you and compassion. And you're just going to see how we greet each other, and then you're going to say, "What? You're going to want to know more about this person called Jesus, and what that's all about." And this life is hard enough without a church family. So right. Yeah. So, right. Hey, thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
And thanks for, again, being the man that God's called you to be.
Thank you, Jeff.
Love you.
Love you.